Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Housewives Book Club with me, Molly Mulshine, and my co-host, Jennifer Keefe. Jen, how was your 4th of July weekend?
It was independent. It was 250. It was everything. How was yours, Molly?
Yeah, all of that and more. So hot, but nice. I mean, we had a great time, and some really auspicious things went on, Giudice-wise, in my parents' town, the town I grew up in.
What happened?
Joe Giudice's brother, who we all remember from of the upstate New York moonshine Giudices. Do you remember when they go on the trip upstate?
So we will delve into this more in the episode, but I am potentially the least fluent in New Jersey of all the franchises.
Okay, well, luckily you're speaking to a scholar. So I will tell you. Joe's brother, Pete, they call him. He and their dad, they had a cabin upstate where they would make moonshine. In like season 2 or 3, they all went up there. Caroline Manzo was like, this moonshine is piss. They were like, oh, we've got some homemade Italian wine. And it's like, you guys are going to die of formaldehyde poisoning. Like, this is crazy. Anyway, Pietro Giudice, 53 of Totowa, was arrested for driving under the influence following a motor vehicle stop in my town on June 21st. Talk about an omen of some sort.
Some sort being the operative descriptor.
So first I said, okay, Pete Giudice has been arrested in my town. The conditions are perfect for us to cover turning the tables from Housewife to Inmate and Back Again. And then, Jen, the woman of the hour, Melania Giudice, posted a carousel of images of herself in Maniloking, a stone's throw from my parents' house, living it up at Used to Be's bar.
Which bar?
It's called Used to Be's. Great name for a bar, don't you think?
Used to Be's. Yeah, very, very good. Wow, she's out and about. Okay.
Yeah, so my town is crawling with Giudices.
That is a really good. Yeah, that's good juju.
Giudice.
I saw that Melania said she didn't really care about the mugshot because she looked pretty good.
That was funny. She said she ate, right? Or did she say she slayed?
I'm not sure.
One or the
We
other.
might have to visit the text.
Yeah, we need to visit the text. She might have said she ate down. And I'm honestly, people were on Reddit, they were talking smack about her being like, wow, how horrible that you would say you ate down in your mugshot. And it's like, well, listen, not to be Amanda Francis about it, but the mugshot happened. It's out there. Let's reframe it as a scenario in which to eat down. I think it's like, what are you going to do? She's looking on the bright side. She's not saying, I hope I get 20 more mugshots. She's just saying, at least I looked good.
And her mother says on page 8 of Turning the Tables from Housewives to Inmate and Back Again about her intake at the prison. I glanced at my picture on the card. This was not my best photo since it was taken at almost 4 a.m, but it wasn't the worst either.
Her prison intake photo. I know. Oh my God. Okay. So the book, Teresa Giudice, Turning the Tables from Housewife to Inmate and Back Again. Jen, what did you think of this book so far?
I'm loving it. My favorite memoir we have read to date. Obviously, we've only read 3 together, but I've read some other Housewife books off pod prior to this mission, and this is by far the best Housewife memoir I've read.
What makes it so good? Because I agree. Well, I have some others that I also like, but the ones we've done so far, this is head and shoulders above Dorit Kemsley and Amanda Francis's memoirs. Head and shoulders.
Yes. I love that Teresa gives up the goods that the reader wants immediately. She starts with a prologue that's in media race of reporting to prison. Within the first 4 chapters, she talks about why she and Melissa don't get along, the root of the Joe, Melissa, Teresa dynamic. She gives up the goods.
She Tarantinos it. She says, we're dropping you straight into the action, and then we're going to go back. We're going to do a little backstory. We're going to get back into the action, and then we're going to go back again. She's jumping around timeline-wise. I found it funny. She worked with a ghostwriter called Casey Baker, who is credited on the title. I have to say, I don't know this person. I don't know their work. Huge fan already. This person is doing a great job. They have Teresa's voice throughout. The level of detail that Teresa reveals in this book is really incredible. And I've never been a Teresa fan. I'm not a tree hugger. I think she's scary. But the like, the level of detail with which she looks at her life and remembers things and the feelings that she expresses about those things, I found so endearing. The fact that she listed out all of the activities she did in high school as a kid. I just loved that. I was like, "It's so cute that you remember that and you're telling us that." And she didn't even really reflect on what any of it meant. She just was like, "I did the baton twirlers and I did the" what else did she do? She played the saxophone in the 7th grade and 8th grade band. I gave up on my dream of becoming famous when I became a teenager because I thought it was just hopeless, to be honest. She was a baton twirler, saxophone player. She wanted to do dance or gymnastics, but she knew it was too hard for her mom to get around without even when she got her driver's license as an immigrant. So Teresa didn't even ask her mom to do that, which I thought was just so sweet and adorable.
I liked how, especially comparing this book to Unburdened by Dorit, she kept the family part. They love to drone on about the grandparents, the great grandparents, things as a Bravo viewer that I don't care a ton about. But she did it in an economical way. And this is just so much more well written than Unburdened.
Yes, yes. This is fully showing and not telling. Except once again, the eternal question, what is the business? What is Joe Giudice's business?
And plural at times, business says.
Business says. We've got Dorit Kemsley. We learn what no one's business was at any point. Amanda Francis, we don't learn until the last chapter that she's selling courses and that's her actual business. Teresa, we do not learn Joe's business, what it is, what it was, what it will be. And that to me, obviously it's par for the course at this point. We shouldn't be surprised. The one exception I think we can give Teresa, we can give her a little grace because we can say, I don't think Teresa knows what his business was.
Yes. Yeah, and I think we could say the same for Dorit. I liked reading about Teresa's early career at Nordstrom's and then Macy's. I would love
Real
some
jobs. Real jobs. Go Teresa. I did know that, but to hear her really go through it. And also you can imagine Teresa being like a down ass coworker. I cannot it would be so fun to be in the city working as a buyer at Macy's or Nordstrom and be like, there's this crazy ass Italian commuter that sits next to me and she is hilarious. She can't put a sentence together with the right words, but she tries and she's so funny. Can you imagine working with her in an office setting? The dreams would come true.
I know, as someone that's really good at indulging an office manager, yes, I think I would have been thick as thieves with Teresa as a coworker.
Was that an on purpose Caroline Manzo reference or an accident?
Accident.
The thing about let me tell you something about my family. We are as thick as thieves. Now, I don't talk to half of my siblings, but we're still as thick as thieves. That's the funny thing. I'm sorry to generalize. Jen, I know you're a paisan yourself, but all of these, what I learned growing up in New Jersey is that every Italian person I met, they would be like, everything is about family. All we care about is family. So how many cousins do you have? 12, but I only talked to 4 of them. And you're like, oh, wait, what? I never heard of not talking to your family until I moved to New Jersey and got Italian friends. I didn't know you could not talk to your aunt. Also, though, maybe Italians are just good at holding boundaries.
I actually think it's due to lack of boundaries. I think that their reasons for cutting off communication are the result of such explosive incidents, such a lack of restraint and a lack of boundaries, whether it's yelling, physically fighting. But that's very cute for you to attribute our kind as being great at boundaries because we don't talk to our family. I do want to qualify, before the internet sleuths dig into me as an extremely world famous podcaster. I am 25% Italian. So it's not a ton, not a ton.
So you're, as Teresa would say in her famous cookbook, about as Italian as the Olive Garden.
Yes. Yes. Man, this made me wanna buy her cookbook. What is it? Skinny Italian, Italian Light, whatever the hell. She was describing all her recipes. I was like, "Oh, man, I would love to cook some of that."
I know. I was not raised in a culture of cooking in your house. I was raised in a culture of TV dinners and Burger King. And just to have it be second nature to just be cooking amazing food is so foreign to me. And it made me think. It made me think, you know what? Actually, maybe I should be teaching my daughters that. But also, I do, I I don't want them to be chained to the kitchen because it's a slippery slope. Do you know what I mean?
Mm. Mhm. Like Teresa said, Joe, my father was king. Joe was the prince of my household.
Yeah, I hate that.
Very traditional stuff. And she said that. She said it was a very traditional household and an Italian culture. You know, she was given all the cleaning chores, and he and Joe Giudice never had to clean up, do
Joe
dishes,
Gorga,
clean
Joe
his room.
Gorga.
I'm sorry, Joe Gorga. She had to clean his room. Remember reading that?
That was that's horrible. I mean, that could get you a child services call in this day and age. Making the girl clean the boy's room because she's a girl, that's yeah, it's and I mean, whatever. Everybody's different. So, okay, let's go through the format of the book. Letter to the Reader is the first chapter, which was funny and some would say unnecessary, but it was there. And in the letter to the reader, she talks about how she's never broken the law in her life. This is a common refrain in this book. We don't get any details on what she was charged with. We don't get any details on what she did to get charged with that. For that, I would recommend you listen. Once again, we're recommending the Bravo Docket podcast. I don't want to go through her whole spiel, like her whole rap sheet here. She doesn't really have a rap sheet. Basically, the party line is that Teresa signed some mortgage fraudy documents because her husband told her to. But and which we all sympathize with because we've seen her on the show and we're like, yeah, Teresa wasn't reading fine print. But in the Bravo Docket podcast, they go through everything that happened with their legal case, and you kind of come away with the idea that the Giudices were so defiant and they refused to take responsibility so much that they screwed themselves over. The impression that I got was that they sort of got caught, either kept doing what they were doing wrong or still kind of squeezed a couple more things in there. It gets harder to excuse her as just being ignorant when you listen to two legal experts detail the case. That's what I will say about that.
Okay, I trust that.
Yeah. The word mortgage I don't think is in here one time. And
She did say what she was charged with. I will push back on
did
that.
she? Okay, okay.
I didn't make a note, but there was, you know, a loan fraud kind of thing. She named what she was charged with and her sentences for those charges, but yes, she does not describe in any level of detail what led to those charges.
Right. And it's for legal reasons, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
they always say it's for legal reasons. Like when I was doing more boots on the ground journalism, anytime I would interview, a local politician or anything about something controversial, they would say, I can't talk about that for legal reasons. We just saw this on Real Housewives of Rhode Island. They're
Mhm.
asking Brian, I forget what they were asking him, something like, when did you meet this woman? And he said, I can't talk about that for legal reasons. It's like, yes, you can. You can talk about that for legal reasons. So it's true and it's not true. They use it to get to squirm out of things. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? But I also think what we saw from Teresa on the show during these years when the trial was going on and everything, she is the biggest ostrich in the world. She wants to put her head in the ground on all of this stuff. The worst thing you could do to Teresa during seasons, I think it was like 3, 4, 5, when these charges were starting to come up and people were starting to talk about it. The worst thing you could do in her eyes was to bring it up on camera.
And she said that. She says this in the book. She says, if you weren't Joe or my parents, I didn't want the girls talking about it.
Yeah, she just wanted to push it down, turn it off like a light switch. She just was like, yes, I might go. She wouldn't say jail for years on the show. She would only say camp and she would only say going away. So she basically, her stance was, if I go to jail, I'm just not going to talk about it. I don't want you to talk about it. It's just happening and we're getting through it and that's it. And honestly, going to jail is probably everyone's worst nightmare. I mean, it would be horrible. When I was younger and watching the show, I thought it was a very chicken way to deal with it, but now as an adult, I'm like, "What else are you gonna do? Sit there and talk to everybody about it? Talk to strangers about it on TV? It's not gonna make it better."
As someone who has recurring nightmares that I have killed someone, hidden the body, and am living in fear of being found out, I can't imagine that space of time between when you're sentenced and when you have to report to prison, but you haven't yet.
I know, I know. It's unthinkable, unthinkable. And she's still but this is the thing. I don't wanna talk about it because ruminating won't make it better, and then there's denial. And there is a little bit of denial going on in the letter to the reader. She says, "I never broke the law in my life. I never meant to anyway." And that's just okay, come on, you gotta take a little accountability. You can't just say, "I didn't mean to break the law," you know?
Mhm. I think we're obviously excited for her second book, but this first book was written from the perspective of she's still in love with Joe Giudice.
I know. Well,
And
also, it's gonna be the 3rd book, by the way. She has a 2nd memoir already.
oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. When did she put that one out?
I think it was that one was, I think, called Standing Strong, and she's doing a tree pose. Oh, I just put together why it's tree pose because her fans are tree huggers. But yeah, she's doing tree pose on the cover, if I remember correctly. And it's about her coming out of jail and how she kind of, because after jail on the show, she was like really zen. She did yoga. She didn't wear as much makeup, kind of like Kim K. It's so funny how reality stars, if they come out of any sort of legal situation, scary life or death thing, they're like, I don't wear makeup anymore.
Hmm.
And then, like, a couple years later, they're like, "I'm gonna do it again." Like, even Dorit, she was like, "This is the real me. I've been traumatized." And now she's like, "Okay, now I'm fine." Like, it's
Yeah.
interesting. I would be interested in maybe interviewing an expert about why that might be.
I would love that.
Yeah. So she says also in the letter to the reader, "As you read my story, you will come to know that my children, my husband, and my family are all that matter to me, not money or fame." To which you might ask, if money didn't matter to you, why did you commit bank fraud? Seems like a weird choice if money didn't matter, but okay. And she says, "As I have seen firsthand, fame can be a tremendous blessing and a horrendous curse." To which I would also say, fame helped you pay your restitution,
Hello. Yeah.
right?
She goes hard on the paparazzi in this book.
The media at large. She blames the media more so than she blames the legal system, the judge, anyone. It is a classic case of shooting the messenger.
Mhm. She was very, I thought, almost complimentary towards the judge because the maximum sentence she could have gotten, I think, was 21 months in prison. And she got 15, but her legal team was hoping for just probation. But this judge in the sentencing hearing talked about how much she could tell she loved being a mother and the girls need you. And I think that's all she needed to hear to get behind that judge.
I do feel that the judge sort of was looking to make an example out of her.
Yes. Yeah, she had that quote, "I can't help the feeling that Teresa Giudice, excuse me, needs to go to jail."
Yeah, that was I didn't like that, and I didn't like that they took her away from her little kids. If you wanna bring 4 more kids into this world who are gonna have no respect for the rule of law, send their mom to jail when they're little. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not gonna create a situation where people are gonna break fewer laws in the future. It's creating resentment and sadness. I think taking a mother away from her 4 young children is kind of a good way to breed a sense of distrust of the law and authority in those children, perhaps deservedly so. I don't think that was, all in all, the best choice for society, personally, to take a mom away. And then the dad. I mean, send the dad away, that still is awful, but both of them, come on, it just seemed a little bit like a little bit overkill. I don't know, but maybe I'm just being biased.
No, I agree, I agree. I feel like especially when it's white collar crime, it's not a violent crime, it's not a sex crime, like, it's just white collar crime. Yeah, the girls were, at the time, 14, 11, 9, and 6.
It's horrific, and the way they parentified poor Gia, I don't know what else you would do,
Ooh,
but it
let
was,
me
yeah.
She said this, ugh, she said to Tree the night before, "Mommy, don't worry about it. I'll be here. I'll help Daddy with the girls." that'll prepare me for when I'm a mom.
And Teresa was really happy that she said that. She was like, "Wow, what an amazing girl." And to me, I would be like, "No, no, honey, you're still a kid. You're still a little girl. You don't need to do that." You know? It's just
Yeah.
that was like but it's a cultural thing. It's an old world thing to be like, you need to do that. Also, I think it was more common for some reason, up until recently. I was watching Peter Pan Return to Neverland today with my daughter, and it takes place during London's Blitz. It's actually kind of clever and interesting, but the dad is going away to World War II, and he says to the little girl, "Now you take good care of your mom and your baby brother." And I feel like that's a thing that they used to say to kids all the time when something traumatic was happening. And it was like, why are we going this route? Why are we saying, don't have feelings, don't think about how this is affecting you. Just, take care of someone else. I don't know. Maybe that is a good coping mechanism for some people, but it seems like it was a pretty commonplace parenting trope until pretty recently, you know?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's old world.
Yeah, it's weird. So she said about the media doesn't always show the real me. They don't always give the full side of the story. I can't completely blame them, but I can open my heart to all of you in my own words. And then she said, I love life. Non sequitur, but sure. But yeah, that just was funny to me. The media doesn't always show the real me because, first of all, it's not the media's job. And second of all, she had a storyline in an early season where she was getting paid to do these tabloid covers. And then the other cast members were saying, "Why did you say this, this, and this about us in this interview?" And she would pretend she didn't say it. She would say, "Oh, those tabloids, they make up whatever they want." Well, they don't make up quotes. They definitely interviewed you and you said those things. And maybe if the tabloids aren't showing the real you, it's because you're giving them the most salacious quotes possible so that they'll keep paying you to be on the cover. That could be related. I don't know.
Gee whiz. Yeah, she references in the book her vow renewal photo shoot for In Touch.
Right, right. She was doing that left, right, and center. The media truly helped her pay her restitution. I don't know
Yeah.
what and her book deals, to be fair, she is a hardworking lady and she always has been. I think that was a really common misconception about her on the show because she wasn't working when it first started, besides doing the show. And because she had four little daughters, that's more than a full time job. But she was working, like you said, in Macy's, in Nordstrom up until I think the birth of Gia, or at least up until she got pregnant. She was working for a long time. She was only out of work for like less than 10 years. So it's sort of a common misconception that she was just this Susie homemaker type lady. She's not at all, because she is so traditional with her Italian background and everything, but she is actually super modern in the way that she works and always has worked.
Right. Right.
In the prologue, they go to her getting dropped off at prison. She remembered and recounted her outfit that she was wearing, Teresa, when she got dropped off at prison. She
Yes.
said she was wearing a black velour rhinestone emblazoned Fabellini jacket made for the launch of my line of cocktails, dearly departed line of cocktails, my black skinny Italian tank top, named after my cookbooks, of course, black leggings, and running shoes. So she was working even on the way into the clink. She was promoting because she knew that there were going to be photographers and everything. So I guess she probably figured I might as well be wearing my brands.
I remember reading that passage. It seems like the brands are confusing. She has clothing that is named after cookware.
Yes, so she had a line of cocktails called Fabellini. Obviously, this was in the wake of Skinny Girl. She was talk about a cheater brand. Sorry, Teresa. I mean, it made sense to try this. Every Bravo celebrity was trying to hop on the Bethany gold mine. But she had Fabellini cocktails. It was like a pre-packaged Bellini, and she had Skinny Italian cookbook. It was clearly inspired by Skinny Girl. Both things were inspired by Skinny Girl, pretty obviously. So those were the things that she was promoting sartorially on her way into jail.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
I was very relieved to learn that when she got into prison, they didn't put handcuffs on her, because that made me feel better about, obviously my lifelong fear of prison that I share with you.
Okay, good, good.
Jen, what was your favorite line of Teresa Giudice's Turning the Tables from Housewife to Inmate and Back Again?
Easy. When she was describing her, forgive me, cavity search on the way into prison, she said, knives, phones, guns. You gotta be kidding me. Oh, Madonna Mia. Honest to God, the last thing on earth I would ever think about doing is hiding something in my Chuckalina. Chuckalina.
Chuckalina. I also wouldn't think about hiding something in my Chuckalina on the way into prison.
No, I mean, power to those ladies that are putting guns in the Chuckalina.
Gun in the Chuckalina is a fate worse than death. Leave the gun, take the Chuckalina. That's what I always say when I'm checking into prison.
Man, yeah, totally.
So then we go to chapter 1. Chapter 1, growing up Gorga. She talks about, like you said, her parents, her family history. It's pretty straightforward. Like we said, old world European immigrants to America. But there was one detail about her mom. Yeah.
We're
That was,
thinking the same thing.
yeah. This wasn't until chapter 4, actually, if anyone's going to be a stickler about it. But her mom, her dad, so Teresa's grandfather, disappeared to Venezuela after marrying Teresa's grandmother, and they had the baby. So Teresa's mom, who we saw on TV all the time, she grew up basically up until she was 9 with only her mom, which was really shameful in their small village, Sala Consilina, to be like a single mother. It really was a huge knock on your social standing, she said. Then her mom's mom died when she was 9. And then her grandfather, who was her surrogate father, died. So Teresa's mom, who we saw on the show, was basically an orphan from the time she was 9 years old.
Really sad.
Really sad. And then do you remember the details of how Teresa's mom met Teresa's dad?
I sure do, Malls. Teresa's mom was 13 years old when Teresa's dad was 20, and they met, and he started pursuing her.
Well, almost even weirder in a different way. I feel like he kind of knew she was too young and was like, I'm going to come back in a few years, which is like, okay, then why don't you pick on someone your own size?
Dad met my mom when he was 20 and she was 13. That's on page 8.
20
So,
and 13.
yeah.
And 20 is like marriageable age in any country back during those days.
Yeah.
Why would you say, I'm going to wait for the 13-year-old? That's wild.
Yeah, I couldn't believe she wrote that.
But I guess it was kind of normal back then, unfortunately.
You think?
Yeah. I don't know if they had a really like a age of consent in Italy in the 1950s, you know? It was sort of the honor system up until fairly recently in human history that you didn't, do that. I don't know. This is a
Yeah.
dark path to go down. We don't need to go into much more detail about that, but her dad doesn't get much less scary than that as the book goes on. Something really that I've always felt a disconnect with was the way that she would talk on the show about her dad being this like sweet, cuddly guy who was such a family man and everything. He definitely was a family man, but she also talks about how he would give her this look and he was so scary that one time he looked at her so scary that she wet herself as a kid.
Yeah, that shook me, that passage.
And she and her brother Joe Gorga, they both pretty clearly have some explosive moments of anger that I haven't seen really in people that I am familiar with. And it just is strange that that would happen in two people in the same family unless there was a precedent for it. So it kind of would follow that someone in the house growing up was that angry and would have those outbursts. So that was sort of left out as well, don't you think?
Totally. Yeah, I was waiting for the rosiness that she clearly felt for this guy. Waiting for some stories about that, but they never came. It was just piss in her pants, him slamming the table, and yeah, the look.
Yeah, the dad's a scary guy. He always seemed scary on the show, too.
Yeah, he is a scary soul.
I loved the detail that Teresa's husband's last name, Giudice, means judge in Italian.
Yep, that was special.
And she said it was ironic, which I was like, good job, Teresa. She had a few words that I listened to the audiobook and read it. And so first I read the audiobook part where she says many of the women in the jail scenes are composite characters. And I was like, I would love to hear Teresa say that out loud. And then in the audiobook, she stuck the landing on composite characters. So I was really proud of her for that. She was like, many of the women in this book composites. She in the audiobook, it's very clear that someone said to her, just focus on 3 words at a time, Tree. Just get out 3 words at a time and then go to the next 3 words and the next 3 words because I'll try to figure out how to put a clip in, but I'll read this in her audiobook voice. Other times, I will say, my last name is Giudice, which is the American way to say it. The whole thing goes like that, and I had to put it on 1.5x because she reads it so slowly, and it's so stilted, and it reminded me of in Catholic school, whenever we had to do any sort of public speaking, there was one nun who would teach us how to do public speaking, and she always taught us to do it that way, to just do the word of the Lord, and you would look across the whole church when you said the word of the Lord, and I was like, it was Sister Mary France. That's who it was that coached Teresa. They must have given her a job at Audible.
I would love to interview the PA during that recording in the booth with Teresa for the audiobook.
I know, that would be, oh my God. One of the best things in the show, Real Housewives of New Jersey, is whenever, a civilian has to interact with Teresa for a work project, when they're doing a cover photo shoot or they're doing anything, it's always so funny to see these people just being like, whoa. When she says ingredients when they're trying to put the cookbook together and she's like, yeah, they always have these weird ingredients, like Cumin. And all the people in the room are just trying not to laugh in her face. It's so good.
Speaking of her in a professional setting, did you watch her on The Apprentice?
I did not. Did you?
No, I didn't realize she was on. I don't know if that's available on Peacock. Now, I probably should support it. But whoa. This was published in 2015 and she was yucking it up talking about how nice Eric Trump and his dad are.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course she was.
I know. No surprises there.
Yeah, no surprise there. Yeah, The Apprentice is famously not available on Peacock because if it was, it would tear open a hole in the space-time continuum because I'm sure it is so entertaining and so funny and an incredible time capsule of the 2000s and early 2010s, but that cannot see the light of day until we are well past this political moment, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It would only make him more powerful if we could watch back episodes of The Apprentice.
What a shame.
I know. Someday, maybe after I know we're in the semi-quincentennial now. 50 years from now, 2076, I think maybe they'll open the vault at Peacock and unseal The Apprentice tapes. That would be...
God, I hope Peacock's around then.
It has to. I love Peacock so much. It's my favorite streamer by far. I'm sure everyone listening to this podcast, it's their favorite too. And for our UK Huns and our European Huns, hey you, obviously.
Absolutely. I was trying to pitch to Melissa, my living partner, that we get rid of every other streaming service that is not Peacock.
You would probably be fine.
Totally. Especially having the whole Housewives catalog. Like, I'm good in terms of entertainment.
Yeah, 30 Rock is on there. There are movies on there now. It's just getting better and better and better. Yeah. I have to say one detail that I just found in my notes about the dad and mom meeting when he was 20 and she was 13. They met when she was on her way to a feast to celebrate the Blessed Virgin. How apropos that your 13-year-old love object was celebrating the Blessed Virgin. Jesus Lord. And she says, my mother didn't give him a second thought, but my father couldn't get her out of his mind.
Madonna mia.
Madonna mia. Okay. Anyway, they got married eventually, and then he became a shoe repairman in Ramsey, New Jersey. I loved the details she told about how one time this woman brought in a pair of Louboutins, and he thought the red soles looked really raggedy, so he painted them black, and she came back and flipped out. That was very funny.
But I really appreciated that. When he spray painted them back red to solve the problem, she was happy. I was nervous. I was worried it was going to be, a real Karen blow up, but she was very gracious in that situation.
Well, the thing about Louboutins is the red peels. It starts peeling the first time you wear them. It's really crappy. So you kind of have this ultimatum of, am I going to do it the old money way and just keep them very shabby and be like, I don't care about my red soles being scuffed up because I wear them because I'm rich? It seems definitely more new money to get a red sole. You can get a red rubber sole put on them so that they look nice forever. So it's a weird catch-22 because it's like you want the red sole, you want the status, you want the look of the red sole, but it truly starts to peel day one.
Remind me, Malls, you had a Louboutin journey for your wedding shoe. There was something about you went and then you freaked out that you bought them and tried to bring them back. Is this a premonition? Did this happen?
Yeah, they were just too expensive. I bought them and I was like, what am I doing? This is insane. So I brought them back to Saks because I was like, it's my wedding. I deserve Louboutins. And then I was like, what? Are you crazy? Why did you buy these? So I tried to bring them back and they wouldn't take them back. And the sales guy had said, oh yeah, if you change your mind in 30 days or something, you can bring them back. And I was like, okay, great. And I go there and they were like, we don't take shoes back at Saks. Can you
That's
believe that?
crazy. That's
Yeah, and I was like,
crazy.
"The guy told me that I could," and they just were like, "Well, you can't." And then I had to just keep them, which I mean, I loved them. They were beautiful, but they are also the most uncomfortable shoes ever. Yeah, the most uncomfortable shoes I've ever worn.
Too bad that Tree's dad is not still with us. You could go and bring them to Ramsey, maybe size them up a little bit, put some cushiony insoles in them.
Painted black, a la the Rolling Stones. Yeah, so she says in chapter 1 that Joe Giudice and Teresa, we rarely raise our voices to each other and we work out our differences in a loving way, which hasn't been my experience watching the show.
Certainly not as a viewer. Haven't seen that.
One of my favorite quotes ever, and I know it's horrible because it's horrible to women and it's horrible that he said this, but it's just such an insane combination of words. They're at a vineyard on the California trip and he gets a call on his phone, so obviously from a girlfriend. So obvious. And he's standing by a fence in a vineyard and he goes, here she comes, my bitch wife. She's such a cunt.
Yes. Yeah, what made you think of that just now?
We work out our differences in a loving way.
Yes. Yes, of course. How could I not?
But then at the
Yeah.
reunion, they ask Teresa about it, and I think she's like, "Well, he said what he said, and we talked about it." And it's like, "Okay, I guess you worked out your differences in a loving way because you still love him, even though he said, 'Here she comes, my bitch wife. She's such a cunt.'" And he said it under his breath. And she was like, he was on the phone with a business associate.
Yeah, pathetic.
Can you imagine? I don't know
No.
what's worse, for your husband to be talking to a business associate about you that way or a mistress. The business associate might be worse because it's like, wow, if that's how you talk about me to your quote unquote business associates, then I don't even know. I don't even know what's going on.
Right. Like those are not important people in your life. So to be that mean and give up that much tease, not the right word, is just a huge betrayal.
Yeah, to throw your wife under the bus to a business associate. And
Yeah.
again, what is your business that you need to be calling your wife the C word on the phone over it?
The closest we got to the business, finding out what the business was Tree describing Joe and his brother working for his dad back in Italy. No, that doesn't make sense because I think Joe was born here.
Giudice, no, that's why he got deported after all the legal issues. Giudice
Okay.
was born in Italy, yeah.
That's right. So then Tree does describe a little bit Joe Giudice's business insofar as when he was a kid helping his dad. It was contracting stuff.
Yeah.
As it
They had
often
a big
is.
kitchen downstairs in their house in New Jersey. Like, they had a very humble home, but they eventually her parents installed a full kitchen in the basement to keep the kitchen upstairs spotless, which I found pretty hilarious and convenient.
Why?
I know. Really an interesting way to do it. She got in a fight almost in high school, and then her friend was passing by and pulled out a knife, and the girls scattered like mice.
I loved Scattered Like Mice.
Yeah.
Also, I don't remember how old the girls were, but I kind of laughed out loud at this young girl busting out a knife super quick, even though that's not funny.
Well, as we all will also remember from the show, Teresa, one of her other iconic lines, "I'm from Pattison, did you forget?" That's what she meant.
Right. Yes.
Now scatter like mice. So now chapter 2, becoming Mrs. Juicy Joe. She loves his body. He is so muscular and built. That's why I started calling him Juicy, because I love hugging his strong body. That's like one of the first lines of the chapter. so funny. Teresa was born in America. I guess they brought Joe over to America after he was already born, like you said. So they've known each other truly since they were born, which is so wild.
Hard to wrap my head around. I liked the story about during his birthday before they were married. Teresa surprised Joe with decking out a hotel room with balloons and ordering a bottle of champagne waiting to the room. And they arrived to the room and Joe was just flabbergasted. She said they started making out and then she said, quote, "Well, let's leave it at this. I was the best birthday gift he's ever had."
They were always so hypersexual with each other on the show too. And I love that. I love to see a married couple just being like, yeah, we are obsessed with each other. We love to bone and
Yes.
that's that on that. I love that. It's really endearing to me.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Juicy Joe.
There's also something unfortunately really funny about Juicy Joe, and I always loved him on camera. He's a total scumbag, but he's good TV. Him and Rosie especially, the episodes where they would get together and hang out, they were so funny together, and he's funny, and even in his stupid little, like, Instagram reels from, like, Italy or the Bahamas or wherever he's been deported to lately, they are always just so funny.
Forget if it was someone I met at like an airport or someone's partner at a party. I apologize if that person is listening to this podcast, but they spent time during the pandemic in the Bahamas and Joe Giudice was their neighbor. They learned to snorkel from Joe Giudice.
No.
Yes. God, who told me that?
We need to find this person and interview them. That would be so funny. If you're trying to learn to snorkel from Joe Giudice, he'd be like, "Give me the fucking thing." Like, he'd just be so mean about it and hilarious.
This is very Housewives. It's just come to me who it was. I was in a box at a Rangers game through my job. It was like some sales rep that we worked with got a box and I got to go. And it was some random sales rep from like Ohio. Because on the Jumbotron at this Rangers game was Luann and Kelly Ben Simone at that game that I was going to.
What? Oh, yeah, that was a storyline in one of the final seasons before that cursed reboot that Luann was pissed at Kelly. Okay, again, Joe Giudice's businesses, whatever they may be, were successful enough that after their wedding, they went on their honeymoon to Hawaii. From New Jersey to Hawaii, like 20 years ago, that's an expensive flight. And they stayed at the Ritz-Carlton in Kapalua in Maui and at the Grand Hyatt in Kauai.
They made me want to go when they talked about the resort still writes them a happy anniversary card every year.
Well, that's really sweet. Yeah. I'm just like, how much that must have cost the $10,000-$20,000.
Easily.
What are his businesses? What are his businesses? She went straight from living at her parents' house to living at Joe's house, which is so funny and so old school.
Mm-hmm. I loved hearing about his decor, the leather couches, the jacuzzi tub.
Yes, real bachelor pad. In Teresa Giudice's first memoir of 3, Turning the Tables, she reveals that not only was she a buyer at Macy's and Nordstrom, she also then worked at Calvin Klein at a certain point. So I was wondering, did Teresa Giudice and Carolyn Bessette Kennedy ever cross paths?
Oh my God, that is so powerful. If true, we have to deep dive that.
Can you imagine? How did Teresa even work at Calvin Klein, first of all? The closest she has ever looked to a Calvin Klein girl was probably the prison jumpsuit. Everything else is too blinged out, too much leopard. Calvin Klein is simple, clean lines. Can you imagine Carolyn Bessette Kennedy laying eyes on Teresa Giudice at work?
Wow. In a perfect, beautiful universe, I can.
We need the tapes. We need to find out what year it was because maybe they didn't overlap, but who knows?
No,
So she then starts having her kids. Oh, she's talking about the Maloik. I loved when she talked about the Maloik. That's a really important part of Jersey culture.
Yes. I highlighted that.
Yeah, the evil eye. She says, once Gio was born in 2001, both my mom and Joe's mom warned me about the Malocchio. which is how it's pronounced in Italian. But she says the evil eye pronounced Maloik. It's not pronounced Maloik. It's only pronounced Maloik in New Jersey, I think. If we have any Italian listeners, I need you to tell me if that's true or not.
Is
Because
it
every
not
Italian,
Malocchio?
yes, Malocchio. Every Italian person I've ever met, I have said to them, is prosciutto pronounced prosciutto? And they're like, no, what are you talking about? So Jersey Italian is complete bastardization. It's very funny.
Mhm.
She reveals a special spell or potion for getting rid of the evil eye, the Maloik. Can you tell me what that was?
Absolutely. Folks, get your pens and pencils ready if you want to perform Tree's Malocchio ceremony. Okay. I was a teenager. I used to get the worst headaches. My mom took me to see this old lady she knew to find out if the headaches were caused by the Malocchio. I watched as she put drops of olive oil in a bowl of water. If the drops got big, that meant someone had given you the Malocchio, and she would say prayers to break it. It worked. My headaches went away. I remember the lady would yawn from saying the prayers, which meant the Malocchio was gone. The bigger and longer the yawn, the worse the Malocchio was. The lady yawned for a long time, which meant mine was very bad. So just to review, to summarize, if you want to find out if the Malocchio has been cast on you, you're going to put drops of olive oil in a bowl of water with an old lady next to you. And if the drops are big, that means you got the evil eye. And now you need an old lady to say a prayer. And if she's yawning, that means the Malocchio cast on you is extra bad.
And also, just to confirm once again, if you're in New Jersey, this is pronounced Maloik.
Thank you. This is a bilingual podcast.
So the horn, the Italian horn, a lot of my Italian friends, they wear a horn necklace. That's to protect from the Maloik.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. To poke it.
Yeah, so that's really good to know as well. So in 2000, I didn't realize this. They went from Joe's bachelor pad, a three-family home that he owned. They lived in it. So I was like, was it subdivided and they lived in one of the apartments? It didn't make sense. She didn't explain. But in 2000, pretty soon after they got married, a friend of Joe's showed him a fantastic property in Montville, which is where they lived before, like when all the jail things were going down. So that giant one with the angel wing doors, they lived in that house for a few years, then moved out for a few years while Joe and some of his construction crew added onto it and changed the roof. We were still finishing our house when I started Real Housewives. So I never realized that that was pretty much their first marital home besides the one she joined him in. I thought it was something that they had only moved into for Real Housewives, but they would have lived there either way.
Yeah, that is interesting. I would have never thought that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know why I cared that much about that. That house was so crazy and insane. And I love watching the old episodes in that crazy Italianate cheesecake factory of a homestead.
Yeah, this made me really want to return to the texts.
Oh my God. I've been rewatching the Cursed season, which is the season with the twins and Amber Marchese, which is when Teresa is learning what her fate is going to be in the legal system. And it's so dark and difficult to watch, not just because of Teresa's legal problems, but because of Jim Marchese. He is evil personified. And he's a lawyer, so he will never go to jail for his evil crimes. He's just mean to everyone. That's all. It really is an interesting juxtaposition of a guy who's such a dick and always going to coast by in life, and a woman who just through her own lack of wherewithal around the financial system wound up in the slammer, you
Yeah.
know? And she
Yeah.
could have done more to help herself, don't get me wrong, based on, again, what I understand of the case. But it really is just, I mean, I don't know. Jim Marchese is so mean and horrible.
Yeah.
So it just makes you think. It makes you think about who goes to jail and who doesn't. You can be a dick to everyone, but if you sign the wrong paper, you're out of here.
That's exactly right.
So in our next episode, we're going to get into Teresa being cast on Real Housewives of New Jersey, a momentous time in my life. And we're going to get into her jail and everything. I mean, there's so much in this book, Turning the Tables by Teresa Giudice, that we could probably do 4 or 5 weeks just based on this book.
I agree. It's a rich, rich text. A detail I loved in Turning the Tables was hearing about Teresa's prayer group in prison and sort of the epiphanies that she had there. Some that I found quite moving, that she discovered about herself while in community with these other incarcerated women.
Yeah, I loved that. She has so many prison details.
Yeah.
She really, really took notes. There are more details in this book, like I said, than Dorit Kemsley and Amanda Francis's books put together. I'm sorry to say it. It's just true. It is full of facts. Facts about Tree, facts about Juicy Joe, facts about the girls, her parents. It really is a rich text. So we're going to keep going. We're going to reconvene next Friday. Every Friday we are here at Housewives Book Club reading every single memoir ever written by a real housewife. And this is probably the first of several dozen Teresa episodes because she has written, I think, 7 or 8 books, and there's one more on the way. So tune in wherever you get your podcasts,
Please, please do.
and we will see you next week.
Bye, everyone.